right, I guess we can start. So good morning, everybody. And hello to everybody here at ForSpace, as well as those who are joining us from online. So I guess we can get started, and as people come in, we'll just welcome them. So I'd like to start with the territorial acknowledgement. We'd like to begin by acknowledging that Concordia University is located on unceded indigenous lands. The Kanien'kehá:ka Nation is recognized as custodians of the lands and waters on which we gather today. Tiohtià:ke Montreal is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. Today, it is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. We respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future, and our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. So welcome everybody to the session entitled AI Applications in Education from Student Service to Immersive Learning. Of course, I really hope today you'll be going to many very interesting talks from our colleagues. And as much as you'll be hearing a lot from us, I think one very important thing to remember is we will also really love to hear from you. So if during the day you have any questions or comments or feedback about things that you've seen, thoughts of different things that you would like to see in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're really committed to making this better every year. So I guess without further ado, I'm gonna get started. So welcome everybody to this presentation. So just a 30-second introduction of who I am so that you know who I am, where I come from, what I do, etc. So my name is Ping. I'm a learning experience designer from eConcordia, Knowledge One. We basically develop online credited courses for Concordia. So our bread and butter really is about providing help for faculty members to transition their courses online, and to accomplish this goal, our teams have instructional designers, videographers. So we're really a diverse team to ensure that we cover all bases of our faculty members. So this is just to let you know in a very short who I am and where I come from. So given the time frame that we have today, I think it's very important that this is basically the roadmap that I'm proposing for us. AI is a really big topic, and it's going to be difficult to tackle everything at once. So what I'm proposing today is really to start with a bit of a terminology exercise, very simple, just to make sure that we both know what we're talking about, and then actually to base the presentation mostly on case studies of concrete situations where we've implemented and integrated AI into an academic university setting. And if I manage to get through all of this without busting my time, I will happily take questions. But of course, I also want to mention that just because the presentation ends today doesn't mean that the conversation ends. So if at any point you have any questions, you would like to continue talking about this, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and to continue this conversation. So here we go. So just going to the basics, in case some of you are not familiar with this or have never heard of it or don't know much about it. So what exactly do we mean when we talk about artificial intelligence? Because it can mean many different things to many different people. So just to narrow down the scope of our presentation a little bit today, I've decided to work with two definitions. The first one is comes from John McCarthy, who's a pioneer computer scientist in artificial intelligence. And he describes it as it's science and engineering of making intelligent machines, especially intelligent computer programs. So there's a certain element of intelligence involved with machines and something of that nature. But also from another rather authoritative source, a book, a very important book on artificial intelligence called Artificial Intelligence, A Modern Approach by Stuart Russell and Peter Norwig. They describe it as more systems that think like humans and systems that act like humans. So I think this kind of definition gives us enough leeway for us to actually go through a little bit of exploration on this topic. So it's sort of what I'm gonna use to kind of slowly move towards some of the topics that I wanted to cover today. So when we talk about thinking and acting like humans, right, I think many of us have probably seen this or heard it from the news. Some of these examples may be such as like robot assistants, for example. in some countries, this is a technology that's very popular and used. For example, in Japan, where they're very much relied upon in terms of assisted living for senior citizens. So the idea is to have the robots perform human tasks, and even on some level, provide emotional support, not only physical. So in that sense, it's sort of a robot that acts in some way like humans. Another very omnipresent example is all about driverless cars. So the idea of like the car actually itself being some kind of robot with intelligent capabilities, allowing it to scan its environment and almost sometimes try to make decisions for you. So in a way, it goes along that line of thinking and acting like humans. So the machine is trying to understand what would a human do, and even sometimes what would a human wouldn't do, and try to influence the choices. So these are just two examples that are a little bit more, I would say, physically based, where it's really replacing some of the physical functions. But there are also some that are a little bit less tangible. So for example, when we're browsing YouTube, the algorithm very often makes recommendations about what it thinks we might like. So of course, it's analyzing based on your own watch history and trying to determine, right? Like we think that this person will like it, and then from those, and from that, giving you recommendations. And even on some shopping websites, right? Like other customers who have purchased what you purchase also purchase this, so maybe you'll like it. So in a way, it's started to go into the territory of like trying to think like humans, trying to understand how what's going through your mind, your tastes. And I think some may even argue that the algorithms sometimes know us better than we do. So this is another example, right, of artificial intelligence being sort of in our daily life, being omnipresent. But I think what kind of alarms people a little bit more is when these applications of AI start getting into the realm of creativity, of originality, because very often I think many people would like to think that what separates humans from machines is that humans can think, humans can create, humans can come up with original thought. And recent advances in artificial intelligence starts to encroach into this area, and I think that's probably why there's a sudden, many more people are getting alarmed by this. So these are just two examples that randomly picked. Well, the one is AI poetry that was used by that was done from ChatGPT. And you will see, I've included the prompts, the textual prompts. So what a textual prompt is really, in a very simplified way, it's a textual instructions that you give to the AI in order to get what you want from it. So in this particular prompt, I write a stanza about the fun of the Digital Skillshare Day event. And it generated a mini poem. Like the Digital Skillshare Day is a blast, with workshops and sessions built to last. From learning to design and much more, a feast of knowledge to explore. Now, I never said it was good poetry. I'm just saying that it's poetry, and it's attempting to do what we request out of it. So this is just an example of it trying to, understand what is aesthetically pleasing to humans and, generating something. And the other example on the other side, the prompt is exhibition space with glass walls, a large projector, as you can see in the fourth space, facing a busy North American street. In fact, I actually had the fourth space in mind when I wrote the prompt. And I was just curious to see what it could come up with. In this case, I just use one of the many tools called the Night Cafe Creator, and it generated this image, which at first glance kind of looks, fairly conventional in terms of exhibition space. Of course, in no way comparable to for space, but this is just to show you a little bit of why some people might be alarmed, because it starts getting a little bit difficult to understand, like at first glance without context, to know, like, are these actually human creations, or are they, AI creations attempting to masquerade as human creations? So this is really the big question, and I think it goes into very deep, almost like philosophical topics. Unfortunately, I don't think necessarily that we have the time to talk about these big topics. So the way I wanted to go about this is actually to really focus on practical applications. So these are really big ideas, crazy ideas, but how specifically do they impact daily life of our work in a university academic context? So in this part, the first example I want to share with you is actually the ECAMI chatbot, which uses the IBM Watson AI engine. Just for your information, EC from ECAMI stands for eConcordia. So the reason why I wanted to share this example is because a lot of our work at eConcordia is student-facing. So whether it is at the beginning of the semesters or throughout the year, we very often get queries from students because there are many students taking online courses, and very often there are questions about technical issues, trying to figure out information about their status, all these things. So we do get a very large number of queries and information requests from the students. So that's why on our website, we've actually integrated a chatbot service. So this chatbot is actually not, there's nothing, I would say, witchcrafty about it. It's a fairly straightforward chatbot. And so essentially, you can have a conversation with this personal assistant. So it will say, hello, I'm ECAMI, your personal eConcordia chatbot. How can I help you? And which topic are you interested in? Because usually when the students access this, they usually have a specific question or issue in mind. So I guess I can just do a live demo. I already have it opened. So I'm just going to share it with you to show you a little bit what it looks like. So when you get onto the website, oops, I think I have to temporarily unshare so that I can share the correct thing. Right, so essentially when the student logs in, we greet them and we ask them which topic are you interested in. So let's say the student has a registration issue. They can select the option here, registration. And the conversation will continue. So registration, please select the subtopic. So let's say the student has issues registering for the course. They will say, I can't register for my course. In this particular case, then the chatbot will propose a solution. So registration is done through the student hub. Please contact, we'll basically redirect the student to the correct resource. And in this case, try to help field some of these questions. And whenever we propose a solution, we always ask, does this answer your question? So let's say the student is not satisfied with this answer and selects no. We will always provide them with an option to connect with an actual person. So we never leave the student alone in their system. There's always an ability to contact someone and to have them solve the issue. So this is a particular case of, so this is one particular application of how we do this, because essentially throughout the semester or the year, we tend to get a huge amount of information, and this actually helps us filter a lot of these queries and to help basically our colleagues use their time more effectively. So what this means is that some of the observed changes is after 1 year of usage, the number of support tickets was actually reduced by 35%, which is not a negligible amount. And what it really did is that it really helped us to redeploy our support resources so that they can focus on more complex and very specific requests. So many of the questions that the students are very often asked can be resolved rather quickly. So in this case, this kind of chatbot is extremely helpful because it also provides the student with a quick way of finding out what they really need. And this means that it frees up some of our colleagues so that they can help students who have more specific requests. For example, they're an exchange student or they're a visiting student. There's something very particular about their issue. In that case, our colleagues can support them. So this is really the use case here, to help use this kind of chatbot to filter the information and to assist our colleagues, not replace them. So even in an internal survey recently conducted with students, we noted that 46% expressed a preference for resolving issues via online chat. So this is actually in line with the trends, right, of the students preferring to do these things online. And 30% prefer looking up the answer themselves. So there's a certain sense of independence or autonomy that the student does prefer. So in this particular case, the chatbot really solves that issue. And as I've mentioned before, users will always have the opportunity to connect to a real person. So this is not a question of is this replacing anybody? No, it's really assisting our colleagues to do their work more effectively. So this is a particular case of how a chatbot in a student-facing environment could function. So now, so this chatbot is really a situation of more predictable questions with usually predictable answers. So now the second case study moves towards a little bit of a little bit more of an unknown scenario where the questions may not be 100% predictable and the answers may also not be 100% predictable. So in this particular case, it's an AI learning assistant using OpenAI's GPT-3 model. So the context for this was actually implemented for the course Cohen 691 with Professor Reza Soleimani. And the idea here is actually to bring to focus the power of natural language processing. So what this really means is when the machine tries to provide human-like speech in a way, language, and to complement the students' learning journey. So in this particular case, these are all advanced students in computer science. So they're learning in quantum computing, programming, and all these very cutting-edge topics. So it was interesting, or pedagogically interesting, to provide these students with an opportunity to interact with this kind of technology that they're actually studying. So in this case, it's actually using, in many ways, it's a very similar to the chatbot that you've noticed from the ECAMI chatbot. But this time, there's a little bit of a twist where, I mean, this is also available in ECAMI, but in this particular case, we're actually asking the student to engage in a conversation about the topic that they're studying. So you can see in the prompt here, we invite them, ask me any questions you have about the course material. In this particular case, quantum computing. So there's no indication necessarily of how the student should ask the question. They can choose choices, but they can also decide to just ask the question. So let's say, the question is, what's a qubit? What's a qubit?
A qubit, or quantum bit, is the basic unit of information in quantum computing. In a classical system, a bit.
So I'm just going to mute it, but essentially we added a text-to-speech option just to improve the accessibility component of, just the accessibility level of the component. But you can see here, the idea is it's almost like the way that I look at it, it's kind of like Google, but with a little twist. So it's a kind of a Google expert, if you will. And the idea here is it can basically answer your questions and provide you with contextually relevant answers. But I think the real interesting part is when the what questions tend to be fairly easy because they're fact-based, but you might start asking a little bit deeper questions like, why do qubits exist? And it'll keep going, it'll maintain this conversation okay, I don't know why it doesn't, why do qubits exist? Oh, it was working this morning. Sorry about that. Did I spell it correctly? I don't know what happened. Sorry about that. How do qubits work? All right, well, anyways, I don't know what happened in this particular case, but if these issues happen, we do have a report issue button because some of this technology is fairly new and we're expecting, issues like this where we were not sure why some of these things are not sometimes a little bit clunky. So we always allow the opportunity to report the issues so that our development team can actually look into these things. So essentially, it's to allow the student to have a conversation about the topic that they're studying. And in many ways, we always offer them related questions. So you saw earlier, I selected from one of the recommendations here. What are the benefits? So it's to help the student deepen their understanding on their own time in a fairly independent way. So, and this ultimately leads to what they're studying because they are students who are currently looking into advanced artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and all these issues. So allowing them an ability to interact with this kind of tool is pedagogically relevant for their to enrich their learning. So, of course, part of this exercise is we ask the students to interact with this tool and to reflect on it. So how can, for example, answering questions like how can their field influence AI? How can AI influence it? what are some of the interactions that intrigue you? So for example, like the question that I just asked earlier, where it wouldn't answer, for example, then the question is, well, what's the issue? How would you design this differently? What do you think caused the issues of how it generates answers, etc. So these are all very like advanced questions about quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and these topics. And it was really to provide this tool for the student to play with, and so that they can come up with their own ideas and reflections about this topic. So, and just as a side note, the access to this tool was actually very limited to a very specific time frame for this activity alone. So we actually didn't give them access to the whole thing for the whole semester. It was actually for a very particular purpose in a lesson that was where it was relevant. So that was actually another example, right? So we started with the chatbot, which was predictable questions, fairly predictable answers, to something that's a little bit more unpredictable questions, because we wouldn't have known what question the student would have asked, and fairly technical and unpredictable answers. So the third example I wanted to look into today, and the last one, is where artificial intelligence begins meeting virtual reality, using the same technology that was used in the previous example. For those of you who are not familiar with virtual reality, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but just to give you a general idea in case you're not familiar with it, it's an immersive technology where the users wear a virtual reality headset, and they're basically immersed in an entirely virtual environment. And there are certain things that they can do with this environment that for them to explore. So it's really kind of an immersive technology. In fact, if you've never done any before, we happen to be at the Force Space today all day. So if you ever want to try some virtual reality experiences that were developed at Concordia University, please don't hesitate to drop by and say hello. But over the years, we've had the opportunity to develop a certain level of expertise in this field, right? So, for example, we developed an experience called Phobos VR for a course, SOCI 280, with Professor Jean-Philippe Warren. It's really a time travel experience. So I'm not going to say too much about it, because if you want to find, you'll be able to try it at the Force Space today. But it's really to allow the student to go into a different time and space, and to experience history in a different way, in a different immersive way. There's also other experiences that we've developed. For example, just as a nod to Professor Carliner earlier this morning, when he talked about the importance of soft skills. So we've actually developed a virtual reality experience with Professor Teresa Hernandez-Gonzalez from the Teaching English as a Second Language Department, as well as in collaboration with the Lab for Innovation in Teaching and Learning, to develop a virtual reality experience to help future teachers practice and learn communication skills. So this is something that's actually very interesting. It's a very immersive environment, and that kind of puts the student in a completely new way of trying to deal with the content and to learn, the theories that they've encountered in class. So then it actually led us to the question in early spring of last year, where we started exploring the possibility of merging virtual reality, which is a totally immersive experience, with artificial intelligence that is able to generate human-like speech and human-like interactions. So internally, we jokingly call this the Vrai initiative, because VR AI. And for those of us who are not who don't speak French, Vrai basically means real. And it's particularly ironic because none of this is real. So, but we were not known for our sense of humor. So, what I really wanted to so the key point of this particular experience is really to try and leverage this AI's ability to create natural conversations, and to really leverage its massive training data. So this AI has been trained on a lot of information, terabytes of text actually, and to see if it can in some ways embody a historical figure. So in this particular case, we were looking into Isaac Newton. And the idea here was to use the fully immersive power of virtual reality to try and create a meeting space, if you will, like to answer the age-old question, what if you met Isaac Newton and wanted to, what would you ask? Like, what kind of questions would you ask? So I'm about to show you a very short clip of 1 minute to show you a little bit like what kind of interactions this might look like. So I'm just gonna go.
Greetings to you. I heard that there was a visitor who wanted to ask me some questions. I always appreciate visitors. So tell me, dear friend, what is on your mind?
What is this room?
This is my study.
What are some of the biggest questions in science that you would like to have answered?
I am particularly interested in the nature of light and gravity.
Can you briefly explain to me the law of gravitation?
The law of gravitation is the force that attracts objects towards one another. The strength of this force depends on the mass of the objects and the distance between them.
What did you do when Cambridge University had to shut down because of the plague?
I returned to Woolsthorpe Manor and conducted many experiments. I also began work on my theory of gravitation.
Have you heard about the internet?
No, I have not heard about the internet.
Do you know Albert Einstein?
No, I do not know Albert Einstein.
Can you please say hi to the attendees of the Concordia University Digital Skillshare Days?
I am happy to say hello to the attendees of the Concordia University Digital Skillshare Days. I hope you enjoy learning about mathematics and physics.
So obviously I did not brief Newton on the topic that we were going to cover today. It just assumed that we were going to talk about mathematics and physics. So, but this just to show you an example of the kind of interaction that happens. There were all the questions that you've heard were actually not scripted, and none of the answers were scripted either. So in this way, it's really allowing the user to engage freely in a conversation with this virtual representation of Isaac Newton. So in many ways, you also notice that some of the questions were about topics that had nothing to do with Newton. For example, asking, have you heard about the internet? Do you know Albert Einstein? This was deliberate in the sense that whenever we're implementing or integrating these artificial intelligences, we always put a lot of boundaries. So we ensure that it will do exactly what we want it to do, so that it doesn't start veering off into the far end of, some of the things that kind of veers off the objective of the experience. So in this particular case, we've actually put in barriers in place to ensure that as much as possible, Newton will not answer questions that the historical Newton would not be able to answer. And of course, this is still an experimental phase, but it is already, we think, ready to be showcased. So if you're ever curious and you would like to have this interaction with this virtual Newton, please feel free to swing by the Force Space today. We'll be very, very happy to share this with you. So I think I would like to wrap up so that I don't go over my time. So just some concluding thoughts, food for thoughts, if you will. And I think this is a topic that's already will come up very, very many times today. And this idea that AI is now out of the bottle. And in many ways, there's no way that this is going to be rolled back into the box, right? So good or bad, it's very important for us to, it's up to us to really define our relationship to this kind of a technology. And we believe that understanding it is really the first step, right? To know what it does exactly before deciding what to make of it. So this is something that's very important for us to understand it. And the second thought is that AI can help us deal with specific challenges. So it goes back to the earlier point about assistance versus replacement, right? Is the AI here to help us do things, or is it really here to do things that, to do it on our behalf, right? So this is a question that's that we should never, just forget about and really keep it in the front of our reflections. And finally, because of I think many of you have heard recently of all the news reporting about the different kinds of AI engines doing crazy things, such as taking professional licensing exams or generating images to art contests and all that nature. It's really transitioning into a wider public sphere, so it'll become even more omnipresent than before. So there's no real way of hiding from it. There's no way of running away from it. And this is why we think it's very important, at least as a first step, to try and understand this technology. And to know what it can do, and then from there, take the next step. So that kind of wraps up my little quick flyby. I'm really, I think I might have a few minutes, but I'm really happy to take any questions if you have any. Again, if you have questions later, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I really strongly recommend you to consult the schedule that we have for you today. There are many, many great events happening on campus and virtually, presented by all our great colleagues. So yeah, thank you very much. I don't know if there's any questions in the chat or in the room. I can maybe just check the chat. All right. All right, thank you so much, everybody. So like I said, if there's any questions later, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.